Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all to today's session of the National Security Dialogue. And the topic for which is intelligence gathering in the intelligent age, challenges of technological innovations. This should be an interesting topic to discuss and talk. And I'd like to also welcome an esteemed panel that we have today. We have General Rajesh Panth, we have Anju Gupta, we have Aisan Gulani, we have Professor Dheeraj Parmeshchaya from the Hull University. Each one of them is an expert on their respective fields and have great experience in the realm of national security and intelligence. It is said that intelligence is the second oldest profession in the world. But yet, if you look at it, there is no accepted definition of intelligence, which is accepted as across the board by everybody. So that's another interesting aspect of this rather romantic subject, as I was just telling somebody this afternoon. It is best to say that knowledge and foreknowledge is key to good governance and security. And it is the seeing of events from inside, or so to say, through the roof, that give you that edge in terms of taking a decision which kind of leads to your security and decisions which are impactful. Insider's knowledge is also intelligence that's available at the moment. So intelligence can have a very short span or shelf life and needs to be acted upon with urgency at various points of an event's, as an event pans out. I'd like to recall Sun Tzu's words here, who says that if you do not know yourself and if you do not know others, then you will always be in danger in every battle. So I think therein lies the key of intelligence collection and its crucial importance in making a leader confident and taking decisions and also understanding the challenges and the opportunities that emerge with each circumstance as it develops. But in today's world, what we see, the traditional spycraft landscape has changed and changed dramatically. We have technological developments which are challenges to traditional espionage and also covert action. The rise of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, etc., are also challenges. And in that sense, there's a whole host of acronyms that I can read out to you, starting from humans to imins to techint to sigint to massint to satint to geoint, OSINT. I mean, there's just a few as an example. So there's a whole host of specialized areas where we go, which can be kind of picked up and worked upon, and which give you the edge in terms of information. In today's time, if you look at Facebook, if you look at TikTok, these are avenues which give you access to huge data, and deep data mining can actually help you do things with great ease. You can pick up a person from where he goes to what he does, to his habits and characters and everything, and present a character profile in a short span of time, without you needing to put people on the ground to go after or chase him. Then another example of this would be the Stuxnet cyber attack on the Iranian centrifuges, the Mossad walkie-talkie and pager attacks. These are the kind of challenges that we face. And I think that's why the three questions that we have today are of importance. The first being, how can intelligence agencies rapidly adapt to emerging tech to maintain strategic advantage? What measures are essential to address safety, privacy, credibility, and algorithmic bias within intelligence collection and analysis? And how can intelligence gathering process be optimized to better exploit open source information? Now, these are the three questions that the panelists will be addressing today. And I would like to first invite General Rajesh Panth to present his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're right that the pace at which technology is changing is altering a lot of things. One foremost among them is the manner in which intelligence operations are carried out. Uh, there used to be something called a Moore's law, where processing power doubles every 18 months. That has now come down to 6 months. The use of artificial intelligence and the research that is based on artificial intelligence is creating a lot of new technologies. So, my compliments to ORF for taking this subject head on. Let me start with a statement which you will not find on the internet, and that is that in case the int agencies have to adapt to emerging technologies, there has to be a change in mindset at the leadership level. Unless there is a top-down approach and the advantages of new technologies are known to the top leadership, it will be very difficult to adapt. So the first point I want to make is it has to be a top-down approach. The second, there has to be a funding provided for it. And third is there has to be an action-bound plan. Unless these three things are there, whatever we discuss in today will remain on paper. So with that as a backdrop, how do intelligence agencies rapidly evolve? First is to establish a culture of innovation. So everyone in the agency cannot be doing all the things that we will be discussing. So I would recommend creating a sort of an innovation cell which focuses on these new technologies and how to take advantage of them. So it has to be a structured and an interdisciplinary approach is what we have in mind. We have to create a collaborative ecosystem using the academia, using private tech firms, using startups, take advantage of cutting edge developments. In our own system, for example, we have the NTRO, we have the DRDO. Why can't the DRDO and the NTRO be used to make some uh, projects and products for the IB and the RAW, for example? So a collaborative approach rather than every agency trying to create some sort of a product themselves. So the agencies have to carry out a horizon scan of the tech horizon, assess the impact. There have to be people who have to be trained on artificial intelligence. You mentioned biotech or quantum, etc. And then we start, with sort of red teaming sort of exercises as to how we can take advantage of these technologies. Um, uh, we also have to create some agile procurement processes. You see, if we go about procuring the things that we want in the normal L1 sort of a manner, it will be very difficult. Let me assure you that even the int agencies do not have the freedom, although we have these SS funds and all that, but I have seen them from inside. They have a very good process for, financially everything being vetted by the auditors and all that. So it's not that, there's a lot of freedom as some people might expect. So in that, the procurement process has to be speeded up. And in fact, to my mind, this new department that President-elect Trump has created, I find is very, very interesting. The Department of Government Efficiency, which he's given to Elon Musk. So something like that, some innovative process has to be created. But then whatever we do has to be, scalable. It has to be modular because we already have our legacy systems. So suddenly, you can't change things. So how can we stack the modules, and as in when the technology changes, how can we, add up the modules? And then we have to upskill the existing operators that we have. So upskilling of the talent in all the aspects that you mentioned, data science, AI, ML, deep learning, cybersecurity. In fact, like the government has done for up to JS level lateral absorption, we may consider, absorbing some specialists directly who are qualified on some of these aspects into the agencies, of course, with the due vetting process, etc. And then, of course, we have to leverage the new and advanced tools of natural language processing and threat detection, deep learning for unstructured data, and of course, quantum computing. We've been banging our head for a number of years trying to break encryption. Now, of course, with the power of quantum computing, can we, utilize that as some of it is being claimed by some of the nations. And finally, of course, cooperation and collaboration. In the intelligence field, I found that this makes a lot of difference. Whether we consider at the bilateral level, whether you consider at the minilateral level, I can assure you, because I've been attending these meetings of Quad, BRICS, SCO everywhere, and we have a very good now technology relationship in each of these meetings. You are aware of the famous ISET collaboration that we are having with the US, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies. So we are aware. We are aware as to what are the critical technologies, what are the new and emerging technologies. It's just a question of now taking this innovation forward. So, and then of course we can also have these, what are called as the open innovation challenges like the hackathon, etc. Take advantage of, ideas from students, from the public, and come out with new and innovative solutions. So, in a nutshell, top leadership has to, start this initiative. And whatever we do has to be proactive, it has to be structured, it has to be interdisciplinary. I think I'll take a pause here. Thank you.
It was a for your oversight, and I quite liked what you mentioned was the fact of collaboration and cooperation, and also R&D within the country to kind of upskill our own talent pool and our own technology and new startups to make new innovations. And also the what you mentioned was agile procurement processes. Well, I think these are important elements that I think, we need to pay attention to. And if we can follow those lines, and we might be able to make a breakthrough and be adept in adapting to the new emerging landscape in espionage.
Good afternoon to you all. It's a privilege to be here. There are 3 questions that have been given to us all to answer. I'll try my best to answer them in a couple of minutes. So the first question is, how can intelligence agencies rapidly adapt to emerging technologies to maintain a strategic advantage? Now, we all know what is needed is our understanding of technology, and not the surface understanding, but in-depth understanding, because we are dealing with, this world is dealing with deep fakes, social media going viral, etc., etc. We know about it all. So in-house talent sometimes is not sufficient. And as General Pant has already pointed out, that if we need to scan and bring people on board, it takes forever. And apart from logistics and money, I think the real question before intelligence agencies should be privacy and safety of their own operations and people. So absorbing people, bringing people in and bringing technology in is much more difficult for an intelligence agency than, say, for a ministry or for a think tank or for a university. So what is the solution? One solution that I can think of is in interacting with startups, because today the name of the emerging technologies exist in the world of startups. So interacting with startups and probably also investing in startups selectively, without any revenue model, but with some kind of a golden share, you could say, footprint there, so that the intelligence community is able to kind of scan the emerging technologies and how they are developing. These results are not going to come in a day or in few weeks or few months. They may take 2 years, 3 years, etc. Because this research is essentially not in consumer tech. This is in deep tech. And deep tech is where you have, 3 examples I give you: satellite imagery, artificial intelligence, and cyber. Now, these technologies in deep tech are very hard to understand, very hard to scan. They wouldn't be there in the magazines or in newspaper articles or Google. they're there with the startups. As an example, I would say, I just saw the data somewhere. I don't know how reliable it is, but it looks very reliable. That US has invested in about, when I say US, does not mean the government, 5,000 startups in AI, and China in 1,500, and India in 300. So this tells us the level of technological innovation and how, and many of these startups will fail, but the ones that are going to succeed are the ones who will be at the frontier of emerging technologies. So it's very important to get a foothold there without getting them on board, because it's not easy to get people on board in intelligence. There are different challenges of maintaining privacy, safety, etc. Right? That's the first point. What measures are essential to address safety, privacy, credibility, and algorithm bias within intelligence collection and analysis? This was the second question. Well, safety, privacy, and credibility, these three aspects depend on work culture. And they are addressed through internal mechanisms and SOPs and testing of these, which is really a kind of a, you could say, administrative tradecraft of intelligence agencies. That's all I can say here. Algorithm bias, yes. From the very start, it needs to be looked into, tested, and that again is linked to the work culture. How much open are we to contrarian viewpoints when such an algorithm is being put in place? Give one example: if our social media analysis can go horribly wrong. When I say we, means anybody. I'm an open source armchair analyst, if you like. And so we can end up misreading the handle and also the weight of that handle. So it's very important to understand the algorithm bias in what an intelligence agency could be deploying and what it could be tapping. Third question is, how can intelligence gathering process be optimized to better exploit open source information? Well, for many processes, we know simple AI is very useful because it can do a lot of repetitive things. When we go to machine learning, that it can replicate a human mind, it can cull out things from larger data, scatter data from standalone as well as online. It's a very complex. The data exists there, but in a very complex fashion. It can't be sourced all with one machine and with one way. So AI could be very useful for intelligence agencies. I'm not saying everything. Simple AI, even spell check is an AI, example of an AI. But LLM is a different ballgame altogether. Again, it has to be very well thought out because, as I said, I'm again cautioning intelligence agency is not like any other agency or ministry. Then, second point I want to make here is how to optimize, how can intelligence gathering be optimized to better exploit open source. I really feel that human intelligence needs to be better understood to optimize relevance, utility, and credibility of open source. So human intelligence it complements technical intelligence. Human intelligence is not inferior to technical intelligence. And for example, one could be dealing with a Facebook account or a Twitter account or a phone number without knowing who is behind this and what is this person's connection or whatever. Many of these answers can only come from very hard, arduous, unglamorous human operations, which are far more difficult, but at times far more safer. So that's the second point. The third point is better training of analysts on dealing with open source intelligence. Looking for what, looking where, and why are we looking for it? So that in tradecraft can probably, I'm not saying it's not being done in intelligencies here or world over, but this is something which has kind of changed the tradecraft. The open source has changed the tradecraft, because I'm sure 10 years, 20 years ago, this kind of open source information was not available. You had to go and look for everything. Today, a lot of it is there. But with this, the tradecraft needs to change, and I'm sure it is changing. So these are my some thoughts on these three questions. Thank you.
That was good. I also noticed that the lead motive of your presentation also talks about cooperation and collaboration, especially with startups and An interesting aspect that you talked about was investing with startups and trying to get benefit from them through them of deep tech. So yes, that's true. And another aspect, of course, you mentioned was the training of talent pool. I think that's essential. They must know why are they doing what they are doing. What is it for? What is the impact of it? And they need to be trained accordingly, whether it's, as you mentioned, reading through OSINT, understanding OSINT, or language skills, or other human skills. And of course, at the end of the day, no matter what AI can do, I think the human mind is the key element today, unless we come to a time when machines start learning from their own algorithms. I think we haven't come to that point yet. So till then, I think the human mind, or even thereafter, I think the human mind will be the key element in how intelligence is procured, processed, analyzed, and disseminated. Okay, I'd like now to call on Vice Admiral Anil Gulani to make his comments.
Thank you, Rajiv, and thank you, Auref, for getting me on this panel. I'm privileged, and I am not an intelligence expert, but with whatever experience I have, I'll try to put my thoughts together. The disadvantage of speaking second or third is a lot of what you've been wanting to say have been covered by General Pant and Anju, but I'll just make some points. As rapid advancement in technologies actually provides both opportunities as well as challenges for the intelligence agencies. And emerging technologies redefine the nature of intelligence in terms of collection and analysis, to which the intelligence agencies must strategize to maintain superiority. Now, the new domains of space and cyberspace have emerged in the recent past, and as we can see from the Ukraine war, the information dimension is also, put itself between the physical and the cognitive dimensions. Like the Russia-Ukraine war signaled the return of state militaries. The Middle East conflict since last year has indicated merging of low and medium to high intensity, conflicts. And wars these days are characterized with the combatants drawing on vast resources, societies getting mobilized, warfare being prioritized over all other state activities, and attacks on a broad variety of targets and reshaping of economies. Now, there is more. The information age warfare, as described by Alvin Toffler, has transformed into virtual age warfare with a parallel world and cyberspace where contest is actually over the mind space of the adversary. And so, therefore, canvas of information which is gathered by the human agencies as well as capture of machine generated data, that is AI, ML, and all, has actually increased to put people into data deluge or paralysis by analysis or data rich but informationally poor. These are some of the terms that are being used today on the effects of data explosion. So what is the problem that the intelligences face? Is to capture the relevant and to analyze the data in time and do it credibly. Now, when we look at data capture for the tech-int agencies, it's captured through cyberspace, the EM spectrum or imagery, and research innovations and applications research innovation and application is required in all these domains and spheres. And when you look at continuous and timely vivid images not only have the higher end of the spectrum like synthetic aperture radar and hyperspectral images that need to be utilized, but also the platforms must move closer to the objects, like you have these low Earth orbit satellites, nano satellites, lidars, besides UAVs and aircraft. And in the electromagnetic spectrum, besides capture, identification, and reduction of waveforms, to get this data. Now, when you look at data science, we must, like General Pant talked about, upskilling and training. The latest practices would ensure correct application of AI and ML data, and all data must be housed in one common connect store computer, which is available, and it must be exploited for data modeling as per needs. And when we talk of algorithms and writing, it will be only accurate depending upon the data that is there. If you don't have the correct algorithm, then you will not draw the correct AI will not draw the correct lessons from it. And more than technologies, what remains crucial is anticipation and imagination. According to Michael Horowitz, current age of warfare has collapsed the binary between mass and precision, scale and sophistication. And very cheap, uncrewed systems can be deployed at scale as one-way attack systems, and defense against which becomes very costlier as we see in the war. And therefore, attack is cheaper than defense. And as far as the intelligence agencies are concerned, they need to have their own private internal cloud to store and process their data. And data should never leave the cloud, where all store and compute functions are undertaken while ensuring, availability, integrity, and confidentiality of data. And analysts and the decision makers must be connected securely to this cloud of data with foolproof identity and access management, authentication, logging, accountability, and non-repudiation mechanisms. And the links, whether to use or user to user data, must be secure. Uh, when you talk of credibility and bias, this relates to the data processing. As data changes, so must algorithms, which is what I mentioned earlier. And all processing, whether through AI, ML, or otherwise, with best principles of data science in mind. And data science is all about drawing value from the data. And how can int gathering be optimized to better exploit OSINT, open source information? OSINT is actually a massive source of information, but it cannot be analyzed like TechInt or HUMINT. And all three have different characteristics and value. TechInt data is captured mostly without any reference to context, and such data is neither comprehensive nor continuous nor attributable. Attributability and context will only emerge after you carry out correlation, sometimes with OSINT and other times with human as well. And as we have seen and it's been covered by Rajiv also, OSINT has, with deep fake, which is happening today, it's the better way to exploit OSINT is actually to prepare profile cards on persons, organizations, equipment, etc. I'll just, quote some of this with a few examples, that first is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. During this ongoing conflict, agencies have effectively leveraged OSINT, such as geotagged social media posts to track troop movements and verify disinformation campaigns, and automated analysis of satellite imagery and intercepted communications have actually further demonstrated the synergy between OSINT and traditional intelligence methods. And when you look at AI for predictive intelligence, the US Army's project Maven uses AI to analyze drone footage, enabling real-time identification of potential threats. When you look at quantum computing and cryptography, China's development of the QKD satellite like Mischius ensures secure communications which prevent, traditional hacking, and they are immune to traditional hacking. And the third case is of IoT for real-time monitoring. Israel's use of IoT devices to monitor activity along its borders, which integrate sensors, cameras, and drones, is another example where IoT networks enable continuous data flow from multiple sources. By employing edge computing, agencies can actually do this process. So this is all that I have to say for the three questions. I'll take a pause here.
Thank you so much. Okay, you also underline the need for security of the int agency and its data above all. It should be secure above all before it kind of goes out looking for information. So I think that's equally big. In today's world, I mean, you can be sitting somewhere else and you can still mine data through external means. So internal security is equally important, and that's a point. And you also mentioned about upskilling the talent pool. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, we now go to Dheeraj. Dheeraj is a professor, and his subject is also intelligence. He teaches intelligence as a subject at the University of Hull. We'd be very interested to hear what you have to say, Dheeraj. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And am I audible to all of you, first of all? Yeah. All right. And thank you, Aure, for this opportunity to, I'm really happy to share my views on such an important topic. Rather than answering the three questions that were posed to me, I thought I'll just go by the title. The title says intelligence in the intelligent age, right? We're looking at adaptation in that sense. Now, historically, intelligence agencies have always been adapting, right? It could be because of the emergence of new technologies or the emergence of some new form of threat, but adaptation as a process has been continual. And one thing history has taught us is that change will happen in the course of adaptation, but there will be some form of continuity as well, right? So with that understanding, today, I'd like to present my views addressing 5 key areas, right, that need transformation that we will see transforming in this new age, right? What are those five? What are these 5 levels? I look at it from at an individual level, at a functional level, operational level, organizational level, and a systemic level. Now, let me briefly explain what I mean by all of these. When we talk about espionage at an individual level, right? Historically, an intelligence officer meant somebody who had some form of expertise and he understood human motivations. He understood human beings. He could network with people. He could understand what motivates somebody to spy. And he was also somebody who knew how to maintain a relationship and identify when a source was lying, when a source was being honest, and so on and so forth. Today, what we are seeing is that vast amounts of data is being collected by machines, and machines powered by AI can collect vast amounts of data, they can analyze it, and so on, right? So today, the machine is replacing the human being in a large sense. So the new age intelligence officer that we're looking at must learn how to build a relationship with this machine, right? He must be able to identify what areas need collection. He must be able to interpret the analysis that the machine throws out. But at the same time, he must also be able to identify when the machine is lying, and he must be able to know if the machine is reporting to somebody else other than himself. The machine could also be a double agent. So in that sense, espionage at an individual level is transforming, and we will see a greater relationship being built between intelligence officers and machines. So this is firstly at an individual level. Now, moving to the functional level. Now, so far, the understanding of the function of intelligence was that it is in some form an early warning system, right? In order to maintain deterrence, we needed good intelligence. But again, studies have shown us that surprises are inevitable. Many cases of surprises that have happened around the world have happened not because we did not have good intelligence, but it happened despite it, right? So moving forward, when we are talking about technologies coming in, when we're talking about technological innovation and so on, we will need to think about intelligence more broadly, right? It's not only in terms of acting as an early warning system and ensuring deterrence, but we'll also need to be asking how can intelligence be a force multiplier after deterrence has failed, right? How can it be used better both in the battlefield as well as in the information space, in the psychological domain? Now we're seeing Israel do that very well, right? Like for example, we saw that on October 7, 2023, deterrence failed, right? It was a massive blow to the Israeli intelligence. But I think that somewhere the Israeli intelligence system was aware that at some point deterrence would fail. Now, if you think about it, 15 years ago, somebody in Mossad knew that at some point deterrence will fail, and so they came up with this idea of booby trapping pagers, right? So they knew that we would have to utilize some technology like this, right? And also they have certain AI systems such as Lavender and Gospel, which are used to identify targets and so on. So it's not only about deterrence, it's also about thinking about what intelligence can do after deterrence has failed. That's the functional level. The third is the operational level, right? So what I mean by operational level is that generally speaking, when you say intelligence operations, a vast part of it is analysis. It's only a tiny part that does most of the other things. The vast part of intelligence business is analysis. So historically, across democracies, it was understood that when we say analysis, the intelligence analyst was expected to be objective, right? Objectivity was the key, which is why, to put it in the American parlance, intelligence must speak truth to power, right? Today, when we are seeing all these artificial intelligence systems coming in, they can be expected to be far more objective. I mean, when we talk about human analysts, right, a lot of money has been spent, a lot of research has undergone to see how human beings' cognitive biases can be overcome, what kind of structured analytical techniques can be put in place so that the human being can be as objective as possible. Today, with machines coming in, we can expect the machines to be far more objective, right? The data that goes in can be biased. The data that goes in can be wrong, but the processes that the machines conduct can be scientific. They can be understood to be objective. So if machines can be objective analyst, then what does it mean for the intelligence analyst? What do we do with them, right? So this is the key transformation that I see at an operational level. Moving forward, intelligence analysts cannot look for objectivity. They must look for some bit of subjectivity. That is, they have to move from informing policy to supporting policy decisions in some way. I know this can create a lot of risks, this can create a lot of problems, but nevertheless, for the sake of their own survival, we will see intelligence analysts move from informing policy to supporting policy decisions. The fourth level is what I call the organizational level. Now, at least as far as in the UK is concerned, I have heard from a lot of intelligence officers that there is an insecurity, there is a fear, there's an anxiety that they might become redundant, right? Their survival, their existence is at stake. And the reason this fear is coming across is because of the development of open source intelligence, right? This is not to suggest that secret intelligence will go out of vogue, but simply the mass availability of data and the access that people have to it has produced this industry of open source intelligence. You have private firms, you have private individuals, research organizations, all of them using open source intelligence, right? So this has created some form of discussions in most democracies about, because policymakers have started to see the benefit of open source intelligence, many democracies have started to ask questions about how open source intelligence can be infused with the traditional intelligence organizations. And one of the solutions that have come up, and that is something that some of my previous speakers also mentioned, that is to develop some form of partnership, public-private partnership, have some kind of collaboration with other private individuals and so on. Now, the real challenge in doing this is that is something that's already been touched upon, right? That is, intelligence agencies, intelligence officials generally tend to think about themselves as an exclusive tribe, right? And this tribe speaks in a tribal language called secrecy. So today, if you need to collaborate with people who are not from the intelligence domain, then how do you embrace certain degree of openness? How do you surrender your language of secrecy? That will be a challenge for intelligence agencies to negotiate as we move forward, right? Now coming to the final thing, right? The final transformation that I need to touch upon is systemic transformation, because without this, all the other transformations that I mentioned cannot really happen adequately. Adaptations cannot happen appropriately or adequately, right? Now, what is the systemic transformation? India is a large country. It has a huge potential. It has a lot of sources to draw, to draw its strength from. But it needs two important changes. The first is something that scholars have been saying for decades together now, that India needs a national security strategy. It cannot happen, things cannot move in silos. There has to be some coherent understanding of what India's national goals are, where does it wish to see itself, and how it can marshal the resources to support its end goals. The second change, and again here, as I'm somebody who is extremely wary of prescribing Western solutions to India's problems, but I think that there is some merit in asking India to produce a national counterintelligence strategy document, something similar to the US, because today, if it's insufficient to simply say that Pakistan is our enemy or China is our adversary or we face threats from non-state actors. There has to be some form of articulation of what these threats are, what kind of threats are coming up, who are the likely targets, and so on. Only then can it have a downstream effect where private individuals, private organizations can understand what they need to produce, how they need to contribute to the intelligence and national security mechanism, right? So if a document like that exists, then you can expect private firms to produce intelligence products that will be helpful for the governments. At the same time, research institutes, academic institutions can direct the research energies and funds to projects that will help national security, and also it can help them develop metrics to measure the impact that their research is having on India's intelligence and national security. So my concluding point is that when you're talking about adaptation to technologies, our focus shouldn't be only on technologies, but it has to be far more holistic from an individual level to the systemic level. So only when all these transformations happen can our adaptation produce the desired results that we wish for. So I'll stop with that. Thank you, sir.
Yes, that was a wide array of wide scope of things that you've covered in your presentation. And you also underline the need for upskilling, upgrading the talent pool, and also collaboration between startups and the government. Yes, it's true. Most countries will not put all their resources into intelligence gathering because there are other important national objectives to achieve. But the point is, how do we maximize whatever resources the intelligence sector gets? How do we maximize them? And that's why I have a question for General Pant and for you and other panelists also. How does one acquire that agility in the procurement process, which helps a country to move in step or in tandem with the emerging technologies? Because a technology can emerge today and you think you need it, and by the time you take a decision, the technology is redundant, possibly redundant or halfway down to redundancy. So how does one come to that? What does one do to achieve that? I have this question for the panelists.
It has to be a mix of both in-house development as well as the PPP that we have already been discussing. And to my mind, the example that I remember at this stage is a case that happened about 3 years back when we found that there was a Chinese company called the Zenhua Data IT Company that had collected, about 50,000 individual data of the US, 10,000 of India and Australia. And on their portal, they had written that this data is meant to supplement the operations which their military may carry out. So there are these private agencies also collecting OSINT, and today OSINT is, it's an ocean of data out there. And with the sort of tools that are available, the web scraping tools, the crawlers that they have, and very focused keywords and questions come out. So there are, already agencies who are doing that. So my short answer will be that it has to be a mix of in-house development with the resources that are already there. I mean, we already have a lot of resources in-house, as well as, trying to take advantage, as, all of the speakers have mentioned, of startups and, existing players.
Come to you. This is a systemic issue which you also talked about. What do you have to say to this aspect of interconnection?
I think that we need to have a clear understanding of why we need the technologies that we are asking for, because I think that this technological arms race is also not something that countries should blindly get into. It has to be purposeful. I completely agree with Rajesh sir when he says that it has to be a combination of both. It has to be a collaborative effort with the governments and the private sector. But I think that we need to also understand the utilities of these. Every adaptation tactic or strategy has to be with a clear purpose in mind. And my own studies show that technology serves best in the intelligence domain, mostly in the tactical realm, especially when you're talking about open source intelligence, where data can be gleaned from social media, geographic data, and so on, and quickly put to use as far as the tactical commander's decision making is concerned. But when it comes to strategic intelligence, things can happen. There's no scientific way of predicting anything that China would do or Pakistan would do. It requires a lot of research. The human component there is still very important. So I think when it comes to strategic intelligence, we can move a bit more slowly. Where our procurement processes need not have to be trying to match up with every new technology that comes into play or so on. But I think it's only at the tactical level that the urge to procure every single technology that comes out is a bit high at this point in time. So I think that, yes, we need a collaborative effort, but at the same time, it has to be aware. We have to be aware of what our capabilities to procure are, and at the same time, what purpose they're going to serve, right? With every procurement of technology from a foreign company, if you're going to create vulnerabilities for yourself, then I think it is one step forward and two steps backwards, right? So we need to be aware of all these factors when we go in for procurement.
I'll be saying essentially the same thing that I'd said back to this question. One is that intelligence agencies don't need every technology that surfaces. Every technology is of no use, because intelligence agencies have very sharply defined goals. Their operations are very sharp. They know what they need, and making the assumption that the analysts are doing their job, they know, and where to look for it. they also have very evolved operational systems to carry that through. So where do we need technology? Where do they need technology? One is I would say it's an advantage that there is so much work that can be outsourced with regard to open source. We don't, intelligence agencies don't need to get the open source guys on board. They can be where they are without integrating them within the intelligence setup. A lot of what is available with regard to OSINT can be outsourced without compromising the safety and privacy of intelligence agencies. The second is the top-end technology that I mentioned. And for top-end technology, again, there is, I don't see any other way out but to kind of, engage with the startups. Again, saying the same thing, intelligence agencies don't need to get startups on board. They don't need to house startups within their own buildings and, part of their operations. But the engagement with startups is for to gain that knowledge, to get that understanding, maybe through golden share arrangement. So I think these are the two ways in which I would say they partly answer the questions: how do we bring in agility in procurement process? Because both these things can go really fast if government orders could be designed around these two things. The normal logistical process we know takes forever. So this could be the
So the things have already been said. I'll just make a point to say that technology can be a double-edged sword, and in my opinion, unless it is indigenously developed technology, you cannot rely upon it when you're procuring it from a foreign OEM or a vendor. And secondly, when we talk of agility, I think the heads of the intelligence agencies must be given the autonomy to procure, but this autonomy must come with accountability. So this accountability and oversight, as to like Dheeraj mentioned, what is the purpose for which you're procuring this technology has to be understood, and that remains very important in my opinion.
I'll just have one more question before I throw open the house to the house, the questions to the house. There was talk of top-down approach towards taking in and using tech in the collection of intelligence. My question is, what if you don't have people at the higher levels who are actually capable of understanding the nuances of a technology or the importance of a technology? If we have that problem, then how does top-down thing work? So is top-down thing really the key element, or somewhere it has to be the middle down or the upward mobility of things? So I was just wondering if you could have a comment on that.
I think that the top-down approach is really important, sir, because and that is why I mentioned that a national security strategy as well as a national counterintelligence strategy document is important. They might not, which is why I'm saying they might not be experts of things at the higher level. They might not understand technology very well. They might not understand intelligence very well. But if they start that dialogue to the public through the publication of something, right, that can then give directions to people below and organizations, think tanks, which have a better understanding of the problem, research institutes that understand technology better. They can take it off from there. Right now, we don't really have any priorities. We don't really know, have any directions from the above. And so it's all people speaking in silos, right? So if we have to overcome that, we need some form of direction from the above. And I don't think there is any alternative to that. And there are no incentives for we come across a lot of people who are nationalistic or patriotic, right? But they have really no idea about how to contribute to national security. And the same happens even in the technological sector. When I speak to people in the tech sector, they have a lot of ideas. They have a lot of proposals that they think that the government needs to be hearing. But at the same time, there is no way. There is no way, because they also don't know if the government needs them. So then they simply end up concluding that probably the government has all this, we just don't know about it. That attitude, that secrecy that we are talking about. So I think that a top-down approach is very essential. There is no alternative to that.
Well, let me just add, since I'm coming from the National Security Council Secretariat, that a task force was constituted with Ambassador Raghavan as the chairperson. He is also heading the National Security Advisory Board for preparing the draft National Security Strategy. And the draft has been prepared. It is there in the NSCS. It's now a question of timing. And the timing depends upon, a lot of things. Some of it is political also. So it's not that the government is not thinking of it. It is there. I'm aware of it. So I just thought I'd share that point. And the second aspect, why I mentioned top down, is because the advantage that it accrues, sometimes it's not felt at the topmost level, at the decision makers level. So, as part of the process, if the decision makers are, shown these demonstrations and the advantages that sitting here you're able to, get through either OSINT or TechInt or through satellite imagery, a lot of int that would otherwise have taken man hours, then I'm sure, all the decision makers will accept the fact that there is a great advantage in all these aspects.
Make 3 points. While top-down approach is important, I couldn't agree more with it. But I think it is the onus lies on the heads of the intelligence agencies or the national security advisor, whoever is the apex level, to remove this cognitive bias on the top leadership, because they have to make the top leadership focus on what it is. And it is, I think politicians the world over are astute and shrewd and smart enough to understand once it is projected to them correctly and this cognitive bias is removed. I can give you an example of the 9/11 attacks. I think George Bush, I mean, there were indications that it is going to happen, but his focus was on Iraq. He said Iraq is a threat and nobody was looking at it. So this is something that needs to be looked at. Second thing is that I think credibility is built up over time. It doesn't happen overnight. So the agencies, your small successes build your credibility over a period of time. We talk of intelligence failures, but there are many successes also, as all agencies are aware of. And this has to be, shown to the leadership, or political leadership. And then obviously you will build that trust or relationship. The third point on the national security strategy, I disagree with Dheeraj when he says that it has to be there in the open domain, because I would not like to put this out in the open domain. And like Rajesh Pant has already mentioned, that there is a national security strategy, and I maybe sometimes it would not be wise to tell the world that this is what I want to do and this is what I should be doing. For public consumption, on the need to know basis, I think people are aware of what needs to be done as far as NSS is concerned. Thank you.
Questions, I would say the head of the agency does not need to be a CA, or a physicist, or a computer scientist, or a technologist, all rolled into one. In my experience, and I think in the experience of many more people, these people are very smart people who become the heads, maybe barring some, but they are very smart people. They know how to marshal their resources. So I would not make that assumption then top down there is a need to educate. Yes, I think it's a technology, absorbing technology, as I said, for intelligence agencies is not easy because of overarching requirement to maintain safety and privacy. So at times, people who have years of experience as heads, they have seen a lot of breaches and heard about a lot of breaches with other agencies, and they are more cautious than probably a young person with 10 years of service or 20 years of service who may be a smart cookie. So I would say that this top-down thing is probably not that true.
I would now like to throw the house open for questions, and one by one. Okay. Please introduce yourself and ask the question.
I'm Shresht. I'm a postgraduate computer science university student. My question is directed towards Air Vice Marshal Golani and towards General Pant. My question is regarding human intelligence and its relevance with the arrival of with the arrival of technology now. Since the inception of India, the human intelligence has been a key part of all our operations that we have known till date. So, does the arrival of technology in some way affect human intelligence, or are we expecting it to work harmoniously? Thank you.
We'll take it one by one. General Pant would like to answer the question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shresh. That's a very important aspect of int gathering. Besides the classical manner in which human was being obtained, let me share with you that now there is a concept of open source human also. So information from blogs, from podcasts, public speeches. For example, in India, the other day I was seeing one of these podcasts, is the Raj Shamani show, and I found people are speaking very openly about int operations, etc. Human also can be obtained from the open source, and that is the change that has happened to human. Otherwise, it is as important as what it was today because of the credibility factor, etc.
Just add to Shresh, I think it is very obvious from the Israel and the Gaza conflict that has taken place. Despite having the best of technology, Israel, could not gauge this attack, which was likely to happen on the 7th of October. And had human been there, this probably could have been averted. So I don't think human will ever go away, and they need to work in coordination, human and tech.
I'll come to you after the yeah.
So my question is this.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
It's Anirudh Tyagi and I practice in the Delhi High Court. So my question is that the security which we are dealing with is national security. And national security cannot be ensured in isolation with security within the nation. External security and internal security both. So my question is, to what extent India has achieved that kind of technology to ensure internal security? For example, are we in a situation that the people of local intelligence units, LIU, they are well equipped with the technology? Thank you.
Me, because of my background. Okay, so LIU, what does LIU do? LIU goes and meets a lot of people because this is their job. They don't need to, at that level, they don't need a lot of technology because of the kind of mandate that the LIU does. So there are separate tech units within the police system that use technology and tap the kind of things that probably you are referring to. But it's the LIU pretty much does the human part because they do a lot of work through in law and order. And that is where the human element is much more important to a district SP than probably technology. But I'm very sure that that technical upgradation is also there, and this it can't be revealed or discussed in a public forum as to what kind of technology LIU has kind of equipped itself with. But if that kind of partly answers.
I have a short observation as well as two set of questions. The first question I would like to. This is journalist Ainangshu Maitro. I have been in journalism for 14 years, and I'm also a scholar with Center of Geoeconomics for the Global South called COGS. It's functional from New Delhi, registered in UAE. So during my long journalistics career in South Bengal and other parts of the country, I have observed what the old saying goes. There's a deep connections between the cells of flesh, arms, and religion. So I have observed, the cucumbers peddlers and the drug peddlers and the traffickers. They have a strong nexus. And when the sources from Homeland Security informs our agencies in India for deportation, it's only their end that is our only source that we come to know. So I would like to ask, what's our culture right now in the extending neighborhood, like Southeast Asia as well as Middle East, especially in the northern portion of the region, for gathering the intel sourcing? My second question is to Dr. Chaya, who has done a brilliant work. Is it audible now? We have seen, not just in India, we have seen Pakistan, and to some great extent in Bangladesh, how the agencies, not just the intel agencies, but also the financial agencies, they turned very active during the elections and the regime change. So what's your comment in this? Is it a new trend? that that intelligences are being operational under a code during the election time?
So do you want me to answer first, or can you go with
Okay.
the first question?
Anju would like to take the first question, and then we'll go to Dheeraj for the second part of the question.
More narrowly define your first question. I thought there were many interwoven, strands to it. More
Yeah,
define it more narrowly.
yeah, certainly. I'm sorry for that if I've misled you. The first question is there some sort of ambiguity between the agencies? Because we have a G branch of each agencies. We have a BSF officer sitting behind me who headed the G branch. There are a couple of agencies who know only their thing, and they're very much predefined and precise what they do. They don't go beyond. And I'm sure they have a lot of inputs. Even when I have that, serving in this industry, they have a much more input which they don't share, and probably there's a matter of obligations too. So this sort of ambiguity. Secondly, the extending culture in the neighborhood.
I'll answer the
How,
first
how
question.
we got the teeth in
But I've been asked to answer the first question. So, the interagency coordination is very robust in this country. Many of the things which are shared will not come out. And many a times people may give you or the media a very different picture. Oh, no, I didn't say YouTube. I didn't use the word YouTube. I said many times people may give very different impression to the media, but there is the interagency coordination is very robust. So it's not that the intelligence about these people are coming only from interagencies. The police is also kind of very strong in terms of tapping into such thing. But I think it's more than that. It would not be appropriate to discuss here. But I can assure you that interagency coordination is quite robust in this country. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had any security or any peace here. So I think I'll leave it that generic answer, right, sir?
What are the questions with you?
Yeah, thank you for that question, gentlemen. So I think that as far as the question of electoral interference or electoral manipulation by intelligence agencies is concerned, this is not something new, right? Even if you could go back to the Cold War, and there is sufficient evidence before us today of the KGB sponsoring political parties here, the British IRD, that's the Information Research Department, publishing documents in favor of one particular candidate or the other. So this kind of electoral interference has been happening for a very long time. What we are seeing today is with the coming of social media, with the coming of technologies such as deepfake, and the ease through which people's minds can be manipulated, or look at what happened in the 2024 elections. In the state of Tamil Nadu, you had Karunanidhi, who passed away in 2018, be resurrected to come and campaign for his son, right? I mean, that's a bland example where everybody knew that he is dead, and yet, that's a different thing. But you can expect more and more such things to come. You can expect inimical intelligence agencies to simply throw out incriminating information about particular candidates that they don't like or they don't favor. So all of these things will be happening. But I think that as far as our intelligence agencies are concerned, they can think about technical solutions to this. They can think about quick interception of any malpractices that are happening and removing them and so on. But I think that the solution actually lies at the societal level, at the people's level. So long as the person who is consuming this news is not educated enough, is not smart enough to know that there is something wrong with the data that he is looking at, there's something wrong with the information that he's looking at. So that kind of media literacy, that kind of political literacy is something that can truly act as a barrier against this. Otherwise, it's not something new that you see a Pakistan or a United States or somebody trying to meddle with our elections. That is something that will keep going on. And India, given its size, given its diversity, given the number of election cycles it has throughout the year, the opportunities will be umpteen for foreign intelligence agencies. So the true solution should come from the bottom up, not from the top down in this particular problem.
Dr. Sarjeet Dudeja. General Pant sir, I have got a very basic question. In India, we have a fragmented system of our intelligence. One is RAW, second is IBA, third is NTRO. In comparison to CIA, KGB, and Mossad. And CIA has successful two operations. One was a Big Bay of Pig, 1961, and Osama bin Laden, and they failed many times. It's the same as India, we failed many times in our intelligence. And our budget and manpower is almost same in comparison to CIA and Mossad and all these things. So how to improve our intelligence system in comparison to other agencies in the world? Thank you.
Dr. Dudeja, let me clarify. Our intelligence system is amongst the best. In all the nations, there is an agency for internal intelligence, which is the IB in our case, and there is another agency for external intelligence, which is RAW. In the US, they have the FBI and the CIA. In all countries, that is the concept of intelligence agencies. As far as NTRO is concerned, it has a different role. It is a National Technical Research Organization, which supplements, as I said, the int agencies. And it is also empowered by the cabinet to carry out some operations in the cyber domain. So there is nothing missing in our system, and I can tell you it is one of the best. I mean, you may have one example, but I can give you 10 examples of successful operations. I don't know if Anju ma'am wants to add to that.
You entirely, sir. I agree with you, sir.
So just two very small questions. One for Anju ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned about one of the hindrances in absorption of technology is the secret nature of the intelligence agencies. But ma'am, I just want to have a comment from you about the cultural behavior of the agencies. At the end of the day, those agencies are also kind of a bureaucracy. So, is there any resistance due to the cultural background of these intelligence agencies to the absorption of new technologies? Many of the people, sometimes they're very old and they're not adapt to handle these technologies. Is that a case? And my second question is to Dr. Dheeraj. So you mentioned about the example of UK, how the intelligence officers are concerned about them becoming redundant. So, sir, my question is, how can these officers or intelligence officers be upskilled? We have talked about upskilling of intelligence agencies and officers. How can they be upskilled, particularly at the mid-level or at the higher end, to make them relevant in today's intelligent age?
So I think you appreciate the fact that safety and privacy are very important things to intelligence agencies. And you will only understand when you join it. From outside, you can't appreciate. From outside, one would be more like a rebel, ye kyun chupate ho, ye kyun chupate ho. But once you join, you understand why it is important. And why, even within agencies, people have to work in silos till the higher formations decide that you need to break silo for some particular operation. These things can only be experienced, can't be explained because of a variety of reasons. You said it is difficult to absorb technology inside because people may be old. Nobody can be older than 60 in an intelligence agency. They're all government officers. So I don't think it has anything to do with age or culture or background of the people that have. I think because of the kind of openness of communication and information that we have, I think people are becoming very smart. So not just the younger generation becoming smart, I think the middle level and the top level officials are also becoming smart, who are smarter, that they have heard of technology even if they do not know how to use it. And smart person is the one who can marshal the resources. The person doesn't need to become an expert. If I need to know how these bottles are made, I don't need to go and train myself. I just need to find a smart cookie who can explain it to me and ask questions and do that. So I don't think there is an issue about absorption of technology, except for abundance cautious on safety and privacy. Sorry, I'm going on repeating the same thing, but I think I have a conviction saying so. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya, for that question. When I mentioned that there are some anxieties in the UK and other places about them going redundant, the fact is that it's just an anxiety. It's not an entire reality, right? So, for example, if you look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict itself, um, many analysts who were just sitting in front of social media, especially we know the case of one 20-year-old boy in Australia who was playing with some social media data, and he figured out that the Russians are mobilized, right? And that then became a story in itself, that independent analysts, now open source analysts, can figure out what countries are doing, what militaries are doing, and so on. But if you look at the run up to the war, you had France and Germany not willing to believe that Russia is going to attack Ukraine, right? It was only UK and the US who were saying that Russia has aggressive intentions, whereas France and Germany were incapable of believing it. But then suddenly something changed. Suddenly the French and the Germans changed tack and they started to believe in the assessment that Russia has now aggressive intentions. So what really changed there? Our understanding is that the British and the American intelligence, maybe through human means or technical means, gained something so valuable that it changed the French and German perception of Putin and Russia, right? So it clearly goes on to show that secret intelligence does have a lot of relevance even today, right? Open source intelligence alone is not sufficient. So even though that anxiety is there, that they might be redundant, they're not going to become redundant anytime soon, right? They're still going to have a lot of relevance, which is why I'm saying it's when you're talking about how these organizations will reform going further, how do they show their value to policymakers? That value will be not only in terms of informing policy, but to say that we can change, because who are policymakers? Policymakers are people who are trying to create a new reality, right? They want to create something, they want to leave behind a history and so on. Intelligence agencies are somebody who are seen as people who come in the way of that, right? By bringing in something known as honesty or whatever, right? So now intelligence agencies will start to think more in terms of how can we shape policy in a positive direction so that it does not leave any long-term ramifications. So upskilling in that sense, right? It has to happen at multiple ways, multiple directions, right? Yes, technology, adaptation to technology is fine, but clearly understanding the value of secret intelligence, trying to communicate that to policymakers, and also ensuring that they become a valuable asset as far as policy implementation is also, planning and implementation is also concerned. So I think that is the way going forward.
I'm Group Captain Srinivasan. My question to the panelists is, there was a talk of utilizing startups for OSINT or open source intelligence. So I want a little bit more specifics as to how this concept is going to be made to work. In the sense, are you going to call for somebody to start a startup and start providing OSINT for which they will get something? Or we are going to tap something which is already there? Is there something like this in the UK where Dr. Chaya is presently located? Because what I have seen is a startup person who is already making UAVs, he's just lost. He's looking for payloads for his UAVs, which 4-5 types of UAVs he's already made. But there is no hand-holding, there's no guidance for him as to how his company can be utilized. So here, when we talk of startups for OSINT, I would like to be a little more specific rather than just a nebulous talk of, we'll use startups and AI and all those things.
Before I pass it on to the panelists for now, I think the idea of using startups is not for OSINT. The idea of using startups was to help them create tech advantages and tech solutions for the int agencies to use. OSINT is a different ball game altogether, and I think I'll ask the panelists to join in. General Pant would like to answer the question or take the question up.
Yeah, sure. As you rightly said, these startups will be utilized to create a technology. For example, we've been speaking of, excuse me, safety, right? Now, for the safety of your assets, we need anonymization tools. Presently, let's say the Tor browser is being used, some VPNs are being used. Is there something new that can be used in the existing environment? So, while the int agency will have the system in mind, but a small part of that system will be given to this startup. Now he may not know as to where it will fit into the larger system and what is the ultimate aim of what he's making. He's just creating some part of a technology, but in the larger system it will fit in and help the int agency. So it's not that he's going to be part of the int agency as such. So that is one example of the startup. And as you said, in the OSINT, also, as I said, there's so much of OSINT around, and with the different types of OSINT, there's GeoInt, there is OSINT human that I mentioned, and that is where again a small part of the problem may be given to somebody and extracted from there. So that's how it's going to be implemented.
As has been pointed out, startups were not meant for OSINT. OSINT is highly developed. The startups are meant for deep tech. Now, deep tech, what are the examples? Say AI, AGI, LLMs, deepfakes, cyber, space. these are the areas where startups are at the forefront of technology generation and absorption and creating some business models around it. Now, how do startups function? Startups function when they get some kind of a venture capital. Now, typically, this venture capital in our kind of country will come from private sector. I believe so. And in the US and Western world, a lot of government agencies also, fund. And why this? Because so that they can understand how these startups are functioning, what is the kind of how the technology is developing, and how part of it can be utilized. So nobody is going to, the suggestion here is not to bring startup on board. It is like going into a huge tech library where there are a lot of startups and scanning those startups closely by engaging with some, maybe by investing in some, but maintaining that distance. All the startups do not succeed because it's very risky. The gestation period is long for deep tech, not for consumer tech. And also, sometimes their business model does not succeed. So we can't, the intelligence agency cannot become part of startups. So please look at startup as a huge library or a huge mela or a stall where there are many startups, working on these next gen next ideas, which can be of great use should they succeed. A lot of startups will fail. A lot of startups do fail. And that is the whole business model of venture capital. They invest in 100, only 10 will succeed, 90 will fail. But in those 10, the venture capital makes business. But we are not concerned with that. Our concern is, or intelligence concern should be only technology. So 90 will fail, but 10 will come up with the brilliant technological breakthroughs, which in toto or in part can possibly be used by intelligence agencies. And that is something you get readily. You don't need your R&D, you don't need procurement, you don't need long gestation periods or huge amount of money. It's not a radical thought, I would say. I just hope some people are actually doing it. In the West, they do it all the time. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
I have some questions at the back.
I am Anupam Tiwari, and I am from the Office of Principal Advisor, MOD. I have a question as well as few submissions. I'll take about a minute and a half. Intelligence is completely based on maintaining secrecy. Maintaining secrecy is completely based on cryptography. Cryptography is completely based on algorithms and standards. These standards and algorithms are currently, we completely bank upon NIST. Completely, we do not have our own cryptography standards. So while we speak so much about intelligence, maintaining secrecy, and adopting so much of standards and technologies, we do not have any standards in cryptography that we currently use. Now, even post-quantum cryptography standards have been released by USA in August 24. These post-quantum cryptography standards have taken about 8 years to release. They will take about 6 to 7 years to migrate. So kind of intelligence, in case we are discussing about, we should start speaking about all these cryptography things becoming indigenous. Now I'll list down a few, I'll just list, I'll not explain any, technologies which are related to innovations, technological innovations, and they are related to intelligence directly. So in case anybody of you feels interested to know what exactly these are, but I'll just list. Persuasive AI. So while we have spoken about AI, persuasive AI, neuromorphic computing, neuromorphic processing, and neuromorphic intelligence. DNA phenotyping. Our adversary state is absolutely much ahead on DNA phenotyping. We speak of LLMs, large language models. What next after LLMs? We have generative large language multimodal models. So we should be speaking about GL square and M square. Brain-computer interface. Of course, Elon Musk. We have got infocalypse. We should start using these terms like infocalypse, which is a mix of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Then epistemological limitation. While we speak of LLMs, while we speak of anything adopting AI in intelligence, we have to be aware of what is exactly this epistemological limitation. In brief, it is In case we are deriving anything, any output from AI model, it is based on data. Now that data is absolutely not ubiquitous, not everything. It has own limitations of its own. So whatever opinions we derive out of it, it has got its limitation. Then last is explainable AI. So while we speak of AI, while we speak of deriving some opinions out of AI, we have to discuss also explainable AI. What exactly, rather than looking forward कि ये explainable AI का एक software आ गया है, या there is some API to it, there is some platform to it. We should be aware of what exactly, how to use it, and where to use it, and what are the limitations, what are the challenges there. Thank you.
Thank you. That was indeed enlightening and a rather technical approach to everything. Just one sec. And yes, cryptography is a key element in intelligence. There's no doubt about it. And I think a lot of emphasis is being placed on that. There's no doubt about that. There's another question here.
Thank you so much. My name is Rahul. I'm from Asia Society. I work as a research analyst there. My question to Dr. Dheeraj. So you talked about systemic changes, and I think one important aspect to highlight is about the discourses in intelligence studies. In India, we don't have intelligence studies based on official history that the government produces. So whatever we have is based on private papers of some principal secretary. And from the view in the room, it seems that secrecy is still the thing that has been practiced. So my question is, why don't we declassify ministry files from different aspects? Why only rely on P and Husker's files that have different intelligence material? Why so much secretive about this thing? Because one important aspect is that if you declassify files from Cabinet Secretariat or Ministry of External Affairs, different Cabinet Secretary who worked on that, that gives a space for researchers to come up with different prescriptions that they could offer from a wide scope, variety of studies, and based on practical experiences that they could gain from intelligence studies of different countries. So what do you think is the state of Indian declassification when it comes to raw files, IB files? And I have seen your interview with Vallappa Balakrishnan, who says that still our first raw chief's files, only 3 are declassified, and he was the one who put forth studies in 1985 to revolve around the histories of Sikkim accession, then 1971. Then we have different episodes. So if the raw chief could be too much frank in terms of classifying materials, why there is still resistance when 26-year period is followed? So you could basically comment on this particular aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul, for that question. Before I comment on your question, or maybe combine this question with one of the previous questions that was asked about startups and so on, right? Talking about public-private partnership and so on, I am here at the University of Hull, and we have something known as hacking for the Ministry of Defense. What really happens is the Ministry of Defense comes up with certain problems that they have, and we have groups of students work on those problems. They're given an opportunity to interact with the relevant stakeholders, interview them, and try and see if they can come up with certain solutions to the real problems that they're facing, right? Now, these are certain problems that the defense forces or the police forces are facing, and here are students trying to work with them and try to come up with some sort of solutions. Now, what happens after this is that we have observed many of these students either get recruited by the agencies themselves, or they end up creating their own startups because they know who their clients are, know what they're expecting, and so on and so forth, right? So you see, many of these countries, they have now sort of understood that excessive secrecy is somewhat problematic. Now, here's the biggest irony. The complaint that we have about Indians is that Indians are not security conscious. They are not sufficiently aware of the perils of not having privacy concerns, right? So Indians are very open. But the Indian bureaucracy, as you yourself have put it out, is extremely secretive, right? There's some mismatch. They're not sufficiently Indian. So you need to ask yourself, where is this culture coming from, right? And that is the colonial culture, I must say, right? The colonists, before they left, they burnt all the documents. They said, we're not going to declassify anything. We're not going to have any, there's no transparency and so on and so forth. That mentality has continued to this day, right? There is nothing wrong in asking for declassification. Declassification must happen, but how it will happen, how will this cultural change come about, I have no clue, boss. I'm sorry.
Retired civil servant with the intelligence background. Well, it has really been very interesting discussion, and various aspects of national security and intelligence have been covered here. and primarily focusing on use of emerging technology. I thought the subject was primarily use of emerging technology in intelligence work. National security is a very, very wide subject, and intelligence is only a subset of that. Now, intelligence, as you know, intelligence organization, intelligence inputs, they help the government in policy formulation as well as policy implementation. And all these organizations have certain charter, and they work according to that charter. Of course, adoption of emerging technology is extremely important for all the agencies, but we should remember, as far as intelligence agencies are concerned, intelligence work per se is covert with inbuilt element of deniability. And if we remember this, I mean, we may be technologically advancing and adopting all new means of performing their tasks, which includes, collection of intelligence, analysis of the information, or conducting other operations. They cannot deviate from this basic that these operations are covert with inbuilt element of deniability, because if we do not follow that, intelligence work cannot succeed. And that is one of the reasons that they remain low profile. They do not, claim any success and all that. So you mentioned about, that why should it not be declassified. I think the time has not yet come that we should, because it will adversely affect our future operations. Any disclosure of any operation by anybody certainly affects future operations. That has to be kept in mind. So these are the basic things. Intelligence operations have to adopt the emerging technology, and they have been doing. As far as the procurement is concerned, there are many ways of procuring the emerging technologies, and that need not be discussed. We have, friendly agencies also who provide us that. So emerging technology is required in their work, which I think they are doing, and they will find a way how to procure it. But of course, their rapid procurement is extremely important, because the technology is developing very fast. And I personally feel, rather than, developing the technology, focusing on that, why not use the existing technology which are being developed by others and evaluate them, whether they are useful for your purpose or not. I think I will end there only.
Please, please.
It's a question of larger debate, so I would just say my sentence and not get into this. I think our society is not prepared for declassification of intelligence input. So however you may like to blame the intelligence agency, calling them bureaucratic, our society is not prepared. And it's a matter of larger debate, and since we don't have time, so I guess Mr. Sinha is ogling at me.
Thank you. That was an excellent discussion on intelligence and how do intelligence agencies adapt to emerging technologies in order to make their work more effective, which help make impactful decisions by the government and be a force multiplier. It also needs to be underlined that nearly 95% of intelligence is out there in the open. It's ascent. Today we're discussing intelligence. I don't think 5 years ago we would have done this ever. We would not have done this. So we are gradually emerging and coming to a more mature level, where I think in due course of time, even our national security doctrines, as Anil, you mentioned, it doesn't need to be put into on the public platform, but it can be discussed. You don't have to put it on the public platform, but it can be discussed. There can be a public interface with what is it that the public's looking for? What is its perception of national security? How should the government go about it? Maybe that will also help the government come to an informed decision and in framing out the entire policy. So I think that is the key element here. Thank you so much, all of the panelists. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Anju, thank you for joining us. Anil, thank you so much for joining us. And Dheeraj, pleasure to be here with you and pleasure to listen to you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, everybody.